OnePlus just launched a new style of flagship. It's smaller, smarter, and has a price tag that might actually really surprise you. This is the OnePlus 13T, and it packs a Snapdragon 8 Elite chipset and a massive battery alongside a ton of other really great features. And it might be a phone that surprises you and pushes the line as to what to expect from a compact flagship. And then you've got other key specs. We've already mentioned the massive battery, 6,260 mAh, 80 watts of charging. In addition to that, you also get OnePlus's excellent AquaTouch 2.0 as well, and an incredibly interesting AI component as well. In such a small compact package, OnePlus has packed this 13T with a ton of really great features. But first, let's touch on design. It is now a flat display, squared off at the sides, and on the rear here, you'd get the new completely rehoused camera design. And then the performance element, let's touch on that very quickly. Snapdragon 8 Elite, you can get up to 16 gigabytes, 1 terabyte of storage on this particular model. This is 16 gig 512, just to make you aware. And then when you're running things like Call of Duty, as you'd expect in max settings, it runs absolutely flawlessly.
Contact with enemy. Enemy down. Reloading. Cover me. Target down. Engaging mag. Enemy down. UAV online. Hunter killer drone on standby.
Continuing thing around performance, let's talk about the battery capacity. 6,260 milliamp hours here. Now this slightly differs from the 5,850 I believe that you get in the 13S, which is India only, and you do get 80 watts of wired charging. So this battery runs you literally all day, because on top of it having a huge capacity, this is also silicon carbon, which differs slightly from the one in the 13S that was released in India. This is the silicon carbon tech. So what it does a much better job of managing its thermals, but on top of that, it does a really good job of compacting a ton of milliamp hours in a small frame, and that's how this has been made possible in such a small compact design. The rear of the phone gets you two 50 megapixel main sensors, a main lens 50 megapixel and a 50 megapixel 2x telephoto, which is a super odd choice for some reason. I don't know why they've gone down the route. And then the other elements of it in terms of performance, let's talk about that. It's probably a 7.5 out of 10 at best. You can at times, because installed a newer software update, get some really good quality photos and video. Super detailed, super punchy, great color, great lights. But there's moments when you're taking photos where it just looks flat, misses all the details, and very blurry. And then the 2x telephoto is a weird option. Why not go up to things like, for example, the 10x that you get in a lot of compact flagships? And then the biggest miss, I personally think, is the lack of ultra wide. So used to having phones with an ultra wide lens that not having it on here, you do miss it a lot, because it doesn't allow you to capture the detail in a wider field of view that you would on an ultra wide. Overall, the camera experience on the OnePlus 13T is, like we said, about 7.5 out of 10. It's good, not great. So Color OS actually powers the 13T, and it has a ton of really unique AI features in two forms. One, you get the standard things like AI Eraser, which allows you to move objects from within an image. You've got AI Writer, AI Speak, and the standard AI features that you'd expect on pretty much every smartphone, and they work really well, and they are super quick. So for example, with AI Writer, if you pop any of your content into Notes, it gives you a really detailed option to pick what would be the best thing. For example, you can make it more fluent, more punctual, or you can summarize and make it super brief. The other element of it comes in the form of this, the plus key. Now, if you're familiar with Essential Key on the Nothing phones, this works essentially the exact way. Lol, I said essential twice, but there you go. It will work very similar. Essentially what it does is it captures the imagery on the front of your phone and then puts it into a space. The only thing I would say here with this particular element is super detailed, super good, but the differences I find in it are that it's probably not as reactive or as detailed as the one on the Nothing/CMF phones in the Essential key. This key can also work as a way of being a shortcut to things like your camera, your torch, etc, etc. So that is a really nice addition. But we've talked a lot about the OnePlus 13T being a compact flagship, but how does it compare to actual flagships? When you compare something like the OnePlus 13T to its dad, I guess, the OnePlus 13, there are some significant differences. This is a 6.32-inch, 120 Hz AMOLED display with 1600 nits of peak brightness and over 90% screen to body ratio, with that new camera design and of course the new plus key and the more rounded corners. And then you've got the OnePlus 13 that gets you 6.8-inch display, 4500 nits of peak HDR brightness, 90 plus screen to body ratio, and then you've got the classic elements of that circular design at the back, curved body, and of course the alert slider. So the differences are subtle, but the 13T is going to be the new design language moving forward. But for example, if you're watching back content on either device, how do they compare? Well, in reality, they compare pretty much evenly. There's not much differences here beyond the screen size. Of course, the nits and brightness on the 13 does push it a bit further along than the OnePlus 13T, but in no way are you getting a substandard display when you're watching back content on this phone compared to the OnePlus 13, which costs roughly £300 to £400 more than the 13T. In terms of design elements, the alert slider is the only thing that I miss on the 13T, to be fair. But overall, the design profile in terms of the quality, the build, etc., is exactly the same. They just feel just as premium, just as well polished, and just as well refined. So the 13T, in terms of design profile, takes some away but gives something back compared to the 13. However, when it comes to things like performance, it's powered by the 8 Elite, as we said, and a huge amount of RAM and storage, which puts it exactly on par with something like the S25 Ultra, which costs, believe it or not, up to 3 times as much based on what we paid for the 13T. When you're gaming on these phones, there is no difference. Both run extremely well, really good at managing the heat and the thermals, and in terms of being able to have a really connected, immersive experience, again, both work very well. No issues like drop frame rates or anything like lag in between both as well. Where the key differences lies between both these phones is, you guessed it, charging and battery capacity. So the OnePlus 13T will charge at 80 watts on that 6,260 mAh battery, whilst the S25 Ultra will charge at 45 watts on that 5,000 mAh battery. So not only does it offer a slower charging rate, but also reduced capacity. And the 25 Ultra has older, almost I would say outdated tech compared to a lot of the newer phones coming out of China. So that is a massive win for this OnePlus 13T versus the S25 Ultra. The cameras is the final component of the performance checklist, I guess you should say. And as we said earlier, 250 megapixel cameras. When you compare it to a near flagship, or maybe even a flagship like the S25 Plus, that houses a triple camera array, 50, 12, and 10 megapixels. And the versatility in the S25 Plus pushes it past the 13T, primarily in the way that it's able to capture more detailed, more fun looking shots compared to 13T. For example, you'll get better balance in terms of colors. Yes, it's massively oversaturated, but even if you were to dial this down, you still get a better overall photo and image. The addition of ultra wide, being able to zoom further in telephoto in terms of zoom as well, again, just make it a much more balanced, a much more feature rich camera than the 13T. The thing I would say though is the differences isn't huge. It's probably about 10%, but they are noticeable. And that's probably the biggest downside of the 13T in the camera department versus the S25 Plus. So the OnePlus 13T is by all measures a compact flagship phone. It competes with phones that are 2-3x its price and even beats some of them on things like performance. It is an excellent addition to the compact flagship market, and personally it's probably the best compact flagship I have ever personally used, primarily because if you deduct the cameras away, this has no real flaws. The OS is excellent, the AI functions are excellent, and again, any new decision to the design and display, etc., have all been welcomed and kind of push it into competing with other smartphones or doing something very, very similar, but again, in its own unique way. In terms of OS updates, etc., completely unaware. I would imagine because of that chipset, that's going to be at least 5 years for the T and the S in India and in China. But this phone has one significant issue, and that is, besides the ability to import it via AliExpress, you can't get this outside of China for the 13T for this exact spec, or the 13S out of India for this exact spec. This is an import from China. It's been adjusted to be able to conduct a full review, and it's an excellent, excellent phone. I wish this flagship, compact flagship to be exact, was available globally, because it would be the best one out there. Let us know your thoughts on the OnePlus 13T, and let us know your thoughts on us doing a lot of these videos around importing in phones from abroad into here to give you an insight into how they operate and how functional they are to use on a daily basis. Until the next one, we out.